Happy Wednesday, everyone. I'm Sarina Fazan. It is my favorite day of the week because we are ready to go on the record. And today's show is so exciting. Joining me back on the record is CEO Jarrett Preston with IDONEUS. And joining us remotely is one of your strategic advisor, right, Jarrett?
Correct.
It's Dr. Neil Pennington joining us remotely from England today.
Yes, he is.
There he is. Hi, Dr. Neil. How are you? So thank you for joining us. All right, guys, we're talking cryptocurrency today, blockchain, Bitcoin, all this other stuff, which seriously, I am so not well versed in at all, but I get questions about this all the time. And Jarrett, you were on the show with your beautiful wife, Victoria, talking about Our Daily Bread, a nonprofit that she started, that you guys founded together. Well, she founded it. And
yes, she did.
Yes, she did.
I had nothing to do with it.
And then we had a conversation about this crypto craze. So I want you to take it away first. And what is it? What is cryptocurrency? What is Bitcoin? What is blockchain?
Wow, I think from a high level, I mean, cryptocurrency is simply a digital currency, right? We have we've been operating with digital currency for a long time. Every time you use your credit card or your debit card, you're using digital currency. So digital currency is not new. But what's new is having a currency that is globally deployable, not controlled by any individual government entity, right? That is much more free, much more mobile, and which has the ability to be exchanged for value of all kinds. So there are many different cryptocurrencies out there, but really what we focus on is blockchain, the technology that is behind it all. And blockchain is the most important subject for us, at IDONEUS, as far as why we moved our industry to that space and how it allows us to move value. I'll let Neil speak a little bit high level about, Neil, if you want to just talk a little bit about crypto in general, but blockchain, how we're utilizing IDONEUS, and I can talk more about the business model if we want to talk about that later too.
Yeah, I mean, I think you did a pretty good job, Jarrett, to be honest. I mean, if we were to go back about, say, 10, 12 years ago, I think a bunch of people realized that, but fast forward, there would be billions of people around the world transacting with each other digitally, and that something new had to be put in place in order to make those transactions work really, really well. And so they came up with this technology called blockchain, which effectively allows people to transfer value without the need to go through third parties and through the whole complex world that exists, where you have multiple agencies having a hand in the way that happens. It first started in 2009. Bitcoin was the first network, blockchain network, that was produced purely to transfer value. And it's interesting that back in January 2009, when it was launched, one Bitcoin was worth 0.00076 of a dollar. And now it's $45,000. The next big leap forward was 2015, when people said, well, rather than just be simply a change of money or change of value, just one-to-one, why can't we make it conditional on contracts? So the first smart contract was produced, and that was Ethereum blockchain was really put together to make sure that you could go, if I do this, then I do that, then happens, then make the payment. And that then made the whole world, I think, make a complete and utter change, because it opens up everything from health to energy, to transport, to everything, every way we live our lives where we depend on contracts. So and Ethereum at the time in 2015 was worth $1, and now it's worth around $3,200. And have you seen adoption of blockchain really take off? For us, blockchain is perfect, as Jarrett said, where you want to be able to use a network that has privacy built in, trust built in, and allows you to have absolutely certainty that you can transfer value from one person to another person, and be very, very clear that that will happen efficiently, and will facilitate our business model.
So Dr. Neal, I have many questions, but hold on for a minute because Jarrett, I want to turn to you first because I probably should have asked this question at the very beginning. Why don't you tell us about IDONEUS and what IDONEUS does? And then also I would love to for you to share that first Bitcoin story. That's a really good one, but let's start with IDONEUS first.
So IDONEUS is a luxury marketplace, and we have a native token currency called IDON, which is a Swiss payment token. The company is based in Switzerland. Our token is designated as a payment token usable for payment of any asset, good, or service in the world.
Wow.
And it is designated under FINMA, under VQF regulations, a highly regulated environment in Switzerland. We went there on purpose to base the company because we deal with high value assets and we need to create that environment of confidence and trust.
Why is Switzerland
Switzerland
better?
has the most advanced regulatory environment for blockchain and cryptocurrency in the world.
You're kidding.
So they desire to be the main hub globally for the space. So they've become very advanced with setting formal law and regulation that you can actually follow. One of the challenges many municipalities have today is there's no clear law. And so people don't know how to behave or how to build or how to grow in that space. So Switzerland's very defined and still is leading. So we chose Switzerland because of that, and also again because Switzerland itself creates confidence for clients. You could be based in Malta or Cayman or Mexico for that matter, right, or the Caribbean. It's not the same as being a Swiss company. Most people know there's a high amount of scrutiny, and regulatory compliance required in Switzerland. So that's why we chose it. IDONEUS is a company that really is built on the back of a 20-year venture of mine, Obsidian International, the asset trading firm we talked about last time, where we have facilitated asset exchanges of all kinds around the world, everything from real estate to fine art to very special diamonds. Actually, I'm delivering a diamond to be shipped today. I almost was going to bring it in with me.
Oh, bummer.
But
girl always loves to look at diamonds.
The ability to move value, as Neil said, is what we focus on. Our clients historically would trade a yacht for perhaps a Van Gogh painting, or they may trade a villa in Italy for an apartment in London. But those are direct trades. And as Neil said, the blockchain was a perfect technology solution for us because it allowed us to create a safer environment for these transactions to occur on, less fraud. See, the blockchain is simply this. It's an immutable database. The one thing people should take away is it's not some magical plane. It's simply an immutable database, a database that cannot be changed. For example, if the blockchain were in existence when Enron occurred, Enron would not have occurred because you can't go back and change accounting when the accounting's done on the blockchain. And I believe that most major companies will have all of their accounting on the blockchain in the next 5 to 6 years, very likely, and that will be more and more required to do so because once data is entered onto a blockchain, it cannot ever be changed. So that's the same if it's a transaction for real estate or to track a diamond that's been traded between parties or to track a yacht transaction or to track title, right, on a property, where you've heard of title fraud in different countries and even in the US. And there's no title fraud if title is done on the blockchain because it can never be changed and you can check. So it's an entirely new level of certainty and surety that we can provide. So we moved the asset trading model of exchanging high value assets to the blockchain and added a token to the end of it so that when clients trade not only asset for asset as we've always done, but they can trade from asset into a globally deployable currency, IDON, that has no hold cost, no management oversight, no expenses, no employees. So they may be moving out of a depreciating asset like a motor yacht or a hotel that requires tremendous operational expense and oversight into a globally deployable currency that has the ability to expand in value as we grow the IDONEUS economy. In the meantime, they have zero work to do, zero expense, and then they can trade that token for assets of many kinds: diamonds, art, real estate, vehicles, many kinds, and is growing by the day. And
and it's so great to have that certainty, especially when we live in this uncertain world right now. Before you share the Bitcoin story, Dr. Neal, I want to turn to you really quickly because speaking of Switzerland, do you feel that, and I know Jarrett, you can answer this too, but Neal, do you feel that, so Switzerland is the game changer here? Like they're leading the charge and soon most countries will follow that Swiss model?
Yeah, I think the important thing about Switzerland is they very quickly, I guess maybe because of their heritage in international finance and value, realized that there needed to be a regulatory framework. And regulations vary across the globe, and I think Switzerland have set the standard, really. And I think what's really important for any business is to have clarity and certainty around the rules in which they have to operate. And I do think that you will see, and there are it's being adopted across the globe, but Switzerland is definitely definitely ahead of the game.
Let me ask you this before we do the first story with the Bitcoin, because with people that are watching, some people like me, and several others might be wondering, all right, but what is the difference between, what is this cryptocurrency? What is the Bitcoin? Can you break it down? Like in traditional news, we would always write a story that a third grader or a 10-year-old would understand. So if you had to explain it to someone that was like 10 years old, how would you explain it? It's tough, but how would you do it? You have wonderful children.
It's a dangerous scenario, but I'll give it a shot. Wish you would have given this one to Neil. Look, there are vastly different cryptocurrencies. Cryptocurrencies are simply the payment mechanism utilized on the blockchain to move value and sometimes to move zero value. I have a history of experience with assets. So I'm very much focused on tangible assets. My clients are very focused on tangible value. It was a very hard transition for me to imagine someone trading a $10,000,000 asset for a token.
Right.
Right?
Oh my gosh, it's making my heart palpitate.
When the concept was brought to me in 2017, I said, I have zero interest. Thank you. And it was really an educational process for me, and I became a consultant to a couple of organizations, and then I learned where the industry was headed. And it's kind of like if we said no to the internet back then. It's like if we said no to an email address and said we're just going to stay with a fax machine and a postal address, and I don't need a website. That's how big the change is.
Wow. See, now
it's that big.
See, that totally puts it in perspective.
And I almost missed it because I'm so careful and cautious about protecting value for my clients that I wasn't interested in taking a 20-year career and damaging it due to some crazy technology fad, right? But what's happening with blockchain and crypto is that, the blockchain's the foundation, and it will forever change business as we know it, forever change it. Perhaps more than the internet has, at least as much as it has.
Wow.
It will create a trustless environment where you do not need to trust in order to transact. Just imagine that concept for a minute. Everything's based on trust. All these companies that are branding and marketing, it's all to build trust. Imagine if you don't need trust, you can transact with high confidence because of the technology platform that transactions are being done on. So we utilize that with IDONEUS. But back to your question, with cryptocurrency, there are so many kinds. There are thousands of cryptocurrencies. Most of them have very little tangible value. They're based on a potential future value. Or to be the 10-year-old explanation I'll give you is I believe they're based on the mob's opinion of value.
Okay.
Some of them remind me of the tulips back in the day. If you study the history of tulips and how people began buying and investing in a frenzy in tulips, if you would imagine. And then they're buying because people were interested in buying. And so these wild swings people will see in crypto with Bitcoin and even Ethereum and others, it's because there's no asset-centric nature, in my opinion. This is the reason. And people have one way in and one way out. People buy Bitcoin a lot of times simply to speculate because they hope it's going to go up. And then if it goes down, they get nervous and they sell, right? And people rush and they sell and they buy and they sell. And there's a constant wave of volatility and people wondering why there's so much volatility. Well, there's only one way in and one way out because there was no real utility for Bitcoin. It took maybe 7-8 years before there was real utility, meaning a way to use it. I think the first 7-figure asset purchased was done 7 years after Bitcoin was created.
Wow.
Our first multi-million-dollar asset transaction was weeks after IDON was created because we've been in the business of asset trading for 22 years. So we already had the utility. We already had a global asset portfolio and a global client base of clients who want to trade billions of dollars in assets amongst themselves. We just added the token to make it much more fluid and added the blockchain element to make it much more secure. But most of these technology companies, either they started a cryptocurrency, they started with this idea that they want to create over time that may create value or it may not. So people buy and they speculate, and then there's massive volatility. So, my suggestion would be to for people to focus in on where's the tangible value in the model. And a lot of people created a cryptocurrency, right? Now they created a cryptocurrency just for the sake of creating cryptocurrency. But I would say, ask yourself, does that business stand? Will that business be a profitable business model if there were no token involved?
Got it.
The answer should be yes.
Yes, right.
It should stand alone as we have for 20 years prior to moving to the blockchain. Neil, I'm sure you have things to add to that.
I can tell. Like Neil's like, okay, like I want to chime in. I want to chime in. So please chime in.
Well, I've got another, I like to think, really good example about the utility of a token. And it was when I was talking to a client of ours who was the first person to sell a Picasso on the IDONEUS platform using the IDON token. And this guy, is quite old and has been around a while, and he started talking about when the penny dropped. He said, "Hang on a sec. So I used to have tokens or a ticket to use the San Francisco tram stop," and he said, and I'd have these, and actually I valued the ice cream that my friends were buying with their money, so I would actually give them my token or my ticket for the tram in exchange for the ice cream and the sweets that they had. I found it much more valuable, and I'd be willing to do the walk home. And he suddenly realized, actually, this is what you're really talking about. And when that penny dropped, that's when he really kind of went full into the idea that he could, he would find an IDON token much more attractive to himself, because he can get things on our platform using that token, and he would trade in his Picasso on the back of that. And he was going San Francisco trams, ice cream, exchange of value, token. Brilliant.
Brilliant. Such fascinating conversation. We're going to go to a break. We have so much to talk about. And I promise when we come back after the break, Jarrett is going to share the first Bitcoin story.
Thinking of the story. Now it's all head count.
We've got it. What a tease, though, right? So, yeah, it's a perfect time. Stay with us, everyone. I'm Sarina Fazan, a journalist, producer, and podcast host. With a background in television news, I know how much time and talent it takes to produce a broadcast quality production. But no more. Red House Streaming offers a simple, cost-effective method for capturing live action and streaming it in real time to YouTube, Facebook, or any other website. From single camera shoots or multi-camera productions, conventional or virtual sets, and from the state-of-the-art Red House Streaming Studios to remote locations, the professional crew at Red House Streaming, backed by the technology and reputation of CP Communications, allows you to produce more content at a lower cost and with little to no engineering required. That's why my podcast, On the Record with Sarina Fazan, is streamed live from the Red House Streaming Studios each week. Contact Red House Streaming today at 800-762-4254 or online at cpcoms.com to learn more. I'll see you in the studio. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to On the Record. What a pleasure today to have CEO of IDONEUS, Jarrett Preston, joining us, and one of his lead strategists, right, Dr. Neil Pennington, joining us from England. What is it? What is it? PhD Technology Innovation Expert. The mind. So we've been. I have a PhD in engineering.
Okay,
so there you go.
And a whole background in technology innovation.
That's very impressive. No, I mean that so sincerely. And so we have been talking about the first Bitcoin story. And when Jarrett was here the first time, when you were here with your beautiful wife, Victoria, and we were talking about your nonprofit, Our Daily Bread, which is such a great nonprofit. We talked about our friend Joe Papadopoulos was here, and you were talking about the first Bitcoin story, Joe Pop, as we love to call him. And it was so interesting. So can you share that with the audience?
Well, he brought it up, actually. It was a great point he made that, everyone can look back at history and see how things unfolded. No one can really look forward and know with certainty of anything. But we can look back as examples. And there were some of the early developers that were paid in Bitcoin who helped create that protocol and that blockchain.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
As you would imagine.
Mm-hmm.
As we've had parties that were paid in IDON to help build the IDONEUS platform. And some of those parties that were paid BTC, as it's known, right? The Bitcoin coin, the currency, had some coin. It was basically worthless in terms of monetary value, as Neil mentioned earlier.
So worthless, like nothing.
I mean, it was worth
pennies,
well under a penny.
Okay.
Well under a penny per.
Okay.
And they ended up paying. They called it Papa John's Pizza in Northeast Florida. Northeast Florida. And
so in Florida,
Yep.
so everything happens in Florida.
All crazy things happen in Florida.
Okay.
And they made a deal to buy 2 pizzas, and it was late at night, and they got this pizza, a local pizza company, to take Bitcoin. And they paid 10,000, reportedly, they paid 10,000 Bitcoin at that time for 2 pizzas. And
10,000.
10,000. By 2015, just a handful of years later, those 10,000 Bitcoin were worth $2.4 million.
$2.4 million.
And today, they would be worth around $4 billion.
No way. Okay.
10,000 Bitcoin.
Okay, so
the expansion of value was substantial in that case, right?
So Jarrett, but how does that happen? Like in general, like how does that happen? And Dr. Neal, you weigh in too. How does that happen?
Demand, right? Supply and demand. There's a limited supply of Bitcoin, and the demand is growing. There's a limited supply of IDON, and the demand is growing. So the one thing about the blockchain is once a protocol or a contract, as Neil mentioned earlier, has been established on the blockchain, it can never be changed. So there are 21 million Bitcoin that will be created, or that will be minted, mined in that case, and never more. There'll be never more, right? And some have already been lost. You may have heard of them being lost, and people lost their codes and their access keys and all those things.
Can you share that though?
Yes, we'll talk about that. And the same, with IDON. There's 1 billion IDON minted. There will never be more. So the more demand there is, right, the less supply there is, the more value you create. And Bitcoin was first. So Bitcoin created a rather big frenzy. Now they also have a lot of volatility because people have a problem with the confidence of as it reaches 50,000 and 60,000, and people get nervous and they sell and they move. But it's an interesting market. Neil, you can comment further if you want, and on security as well.
Yeah, no, so I was going to say, you once again, Jarrett, you hit the nail on the head. I would add that a lot of it's about belief as well. People will, acquire a token and they'll hold it because they believe that it's going to be useful, have more uses in the future, more applications, and all grow in value. And that underlying belief around security, it is a secure way of doing business.
Do you gentlemen feel that cryptocurrency is just going to replace everything as we know it? Though I mean, like banks going to change, or as you mentioned earlier, Jarrett,
Absolutely.
In the show,
I mean, governments are already moving that direction, as you know. And there are governments that are already moving into sovereign digital currency. Our government is looking at a U.S. digital dollar. Every major government in the world is, and it only makes sense. I mean, when you think about carrying around this fiat currency, this paper currency that is, especially in this post-COVID world, that is, we're transferring a lot of germs, a lot of, viruses.
Very good point.
Is it needed in the 21st century to have a paper bill when you use your credit card or your debit card in the same way?
That gives me goosebumps,
right?
Actually, because I didn't mean to interrupt you, I'm so sorry, but you will go into a store now and they will ask you not to use your paper currency. So I didn't mean to interrupt again. If you could just continue your thought on that.
I think this will be a part of that. This has already pushed that transition even more. Digital economies, the global pandemic was a terrible thing, impacting so many people. For IDONEUS as a business model, it was an incredible thing, because it propelled the digital economies of the world. It propelled people to do on blockchain and online transactions. The online retailers, as you probably have read and know about, have gone through the roof. Our company has exploded during the global pandemic because there are people with these tangible assets all over the world they can't reach. If you have your private island, if you have your luxury villa, if you have your yacht, in some cases the yachts are being used quite well, but many people can't get to or could not even rent these properties. They're used to renting out for 7 or 8 years. They've owned it. Now they have no income. They have expense for the first time.
Right.
So it's driving the economy, but there were no traditional market buyers. IDONEUS used to be able to come in with billions of dollars in IDON capital and move in and take out some of those assets and move people into a better asset class that better suits what they're going for. But not just for the luxury sector, but this is going to be for the entire planet.
Because that's what was my next question, because the luxury sector, of course, your company is amazing. We're talking Picassos and yachts and all this other stuff.
Sure.
So fantastic.
What about the rest of us, right?
Yeah, but what about the rest of us?
I think it's blockchain technology and cryptocurrency is for everyone, but I would say investing in cryptocurrency today is still a very speculative market, and it needs to be accredited, intelligent, well-informed investment. I hear people, I sit down in the barbershop and I hear people talking about an investment they make. I was talking with a gentleman the other day, who is not a high income earner, talking about his investment in crypto, 3 different cryptocurrencies. And then I asked him, do you have 3 months money in the bank? No, I don't have that. Well, you can't be investing in cryptocurrencies, right? This is something you need to take your time to get educated on and have a risk profile where it makes sense still today. But it's coming in all applications. There are, even in our model, we're bringing normal products. We're bringing things like, still on the luxury side, you can buy a bottle of champagne now, right? Utilizing IDON. You can buy, it's not going to be all crazy expensive things. We'll still have luxury products that might be a wallet, right? Or a purse or, those types of things in our world. But in the other world, you can buy nearly anything in the world today with cryptocurrency.
Wow.
Anything in the world today with Bitcoin, nearly anything you can buy.
And I want Dr. Neal also to weigh in on your point, like when he was talking about the gentleman in the barber shop who didn't have, 3 months of his own currency in the bank. What would you say to people, too, that are interested in, cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, and all of that?
Well, I do share Jarrett's view that, crypto is here to stay and will only become more and more and more used, and that I think governments are starting to realize that. And I think in a world where they haven't necessarily got their head around it, there can be a tendency to try and block it a little bit. And we've seen that. We've seen some high profile, China, for example, wanting to restrict the use of cryptocurrency. But I think the cat's out of the bag. And I often think of a world where, we're used to looking into a wallet, and I have $1 because I want to buy things in the US. I have £1 because I want to buy things in the UK. I have €1 because I want to buy stuff in Europe. I can see us kind of switching the world on its head and saying, actually, I have an IDON and I buy luxury and I buy assets and I use it in that particular area. I may have another token for energy, and I can buy energy around the world. I may have another token by which I access health, and then, as well as dollars and pounds for buying stuff, which is usually in the cash market. So, you can see a world where you're using specific tokens for a specific reason in a specific use. And IDON, from my perspective, is absolutely perfect for luxury and high value asset trading, as where others may have another use.
So, gentlemen, let me ask you this on that note. Jarrett, both of you, when do you think that it will boil down to this? Like, what I love that example about the fax machine and the email. If we didn't, when do you think it will get to that point? Are we looking at decades, or
No.
we look at years? Or
No, I definitely don't think decades. Again, it's hard to look forward with a crystal ball, but the familiarity that I see in the marketplace and the number of people that understand a bit about it today versus even 3 years ago is vastly different. I believe that over the next 2 to 4 years,
wow,
it will be extremely mainstream.
Isn't that 2 to 4 years is just like a
extremely
blink
mainstream.
of an eye. I mean, that's like time just flies.
You have to know that when people are trading $10,000,000 assets, when people are trading $70 million pieces of art or cryptocurrency, you have to know that the average size transactions are following along quickly. Those are lower risk transactions. Those are easier transactions to make parties comfortable with. And as Neal said, it's just a matter of probably fitting the technology in the token. And I can see that. Can you see, you log into your phone or your device and you have 7 or 8 different wallets. And it may be that there is a government token that is your local resident government token. You may be paying your taxes with that token. You may be transferring from this token to that token. And there are benefits for renting your vacay holiday home with this token, and benefits for paying your children's tuition with that token. An education token. They're going to be. It's all going that direction, and it's all about utility, right? When there's enough utility, then people will be comfortable. You would have no problem taking all of your compensation in cryptocurrency if you knew you could pay for every single thing you need to pay for with it.
Absolutely,
right?
And if I had that certainty, as you mentioned, that it's safe.
It's just utility and security. And it's the safest platform in the world. The reality is the blockchain is safer than anywhere we have money today. And if you look at the model that you're participating with, many times some of the tokens can have more value, more intrinsic value or tangible value than the fiat currency that people spend 40 years working for.
So interesting. So, Dr. Neal, we're getting ready to wrap up the show. Is there something that you would like to add?
Well, there's only one thing I'd like to add, and that's that question of efficiency. So, there was what blockchain technology and tokenized trading brings is a reduction in cost and efficiency. So there was a time when you might live in Africa, you come and work in the States, and you try and transfer money home to your family, and you'd be charged something like 30% or 40% forex trading. If you use a cryptocurrency, you can do next to nothing, and it's the reduction in cost as a result of simplifying that I think really makes this thing fly as well.
Very interesting point. So I didn't even think about that either. So there could be a reduction in cost for this simple trading factor of it.
Without a doubt.
So before we end, though, and I know we've been talking about cryptocurrency and Bitcoin and the crypto craze, Jarrett Preston, you're such an Dr. Neal, you as well, but I just have to say, you're just so impressive, and I thank you so much for being here. But from the bottom, but you have an amazing company, but you also give back to this community with Our Daily Bread. You and your wife devote so much time, money, resources. In fact, when Jarrett was on the show the last time, we were talking about my friend Joe Papadopoulos, Joe Pop as we call him, who's a teacher at Blake High School. Since that show, only a few weeks ago, your warehouse is filled with school supplies for Blake High School here in Tampa, Florida. So we thank you so much for that.
Absolutely.
What words of encouragement and advice would you give to a young entrepreneur out there that is, maybe even like myself,
Exactly.
I want to be a CEO, or I want to, have my company. What words of encouragement would you have for people out there?
We've all heard it before, but I think it sounds cliche, but it's very true. You have to find the thing that you are passionate about, that you would do for no money at all, that you would do for no pay, and you would do it for the rest of your life. And when you find that thing, and then you can find a way to take that passion and provide value to others, now you have the recipe, right? And that's really how I did. I mean, if I get to deal with the most incredible people in the world, entrepreneurs who have built fortunes, who have, created these luxury compounds, and who have, who own paintings you could never imagine that they own, right? And who have yachts and private islands. And it's not about those things. Those things are beautiful, but the people that get to a level that they can acquire those things, the time I get to spend with them, it's priceless, right? And how much I've learned from those entrepreneurs. I think, and so then the business just came out of that passion for real estate and a passion for luxury assets and for beautiful things, which I love. and then I for me, I've always been focused on how do you provide value? Everyone thinks that they should be valued more than they currently are. I've never met anyone that very few people believe that they're being paid today what they're worth, right?
Right.
Everyone thinks they're worth more. And my statement and my suggestion to them and everyone would be, focus more on the value you're providing the world and others, and less on what you're going to be paid, because when the value's there, you'll be paid, right?
Gosh.
When the value's there, you'll be paid. There's no question, and it's that's where it's at. Find your passion, and then find a way to provide value through your passion to other people, and people will follow.
Such wonderful words of advice. Thank you. And I love what you said when you said, if it's a job you would do for free, the passion, and that's what I did.
I've done it for free many times. I'm sure you so have you.
Right,
it's part of the process.
Right.
A lot of people aren't willing to do that either, right? That's the key.
Well, thank you so much. And both of you, thank you so much for educating us on cryptocurrency. And it's been such a great show. I really appreciate it. I would encourage people to share this show. I know this is a question that a lot of people are asking. I love my graphic. Here it is.
Looking good, Sarina. Looking good.
That's where you can find me. And I think thanks to your wonderful employee, Miranda, here, we're going to even be adding more. Doyle, yes, we're going to need to give you a shout out too, and a picture so people know who you are. Thank you, everybody, so much for watching. Stay safe out there, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you.